Jim Willie, someone who I respect a lot, says that the Fed's paying them under the table to buy our treasuries to keep the system going. Maybe true, maybe not, don't know. But any way you look at it, every politician and every system since the Roman times have chosen inflation over austerity. Inflation will come roaring back, and it's higher than we are led to believe. If you go just simply to johnwilliamsshadowstats.com, he'll tell you, just based upon the way they used to calculate inflation, that it's about 11% right now, not the 3% we're being told it is. It's a lie. I wish it was only 3%. But yeah, I do think inflation is a persistent problem and will get much worse, and it's not going anywhere.
Inflation isn't just creeping up, it's surging at a staggering 11%, a figure that's being deliberately downplayed to just 3% in official reports. Andy Schectman pulls back the curtain on the Fed's desperate attempts to mask the crumbling US economy, revealing hidden under-the-table deals that are propping up a system weighed down by $160 trillion in unfunded liabilities. As foreign creditors turn their backs and traditional buyers of US Treasuries vanish, the full extent of our financial crisis is only beginning to unfold. This isn't just speculation, it's a sobering look at a reality that many are trying to keep hidden.
Even if the budget was balanced today, who pays for the 160 trillion in unfunded liabilities? Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, government military pensions. Who's going to pay for the 20 million people in here illegally for them to be fed and clothed and schooling and medical and housing? Who's going to pay for all of that? Where do all of these programs that Kamala is talking about giving $25,000 to 400,000 first-time home buyers, or a $10,000 tax credit, or $6,000 to first-time parents to have a child? All of these incentives, who's going to pay for them? Who's going to pay for all of this stuff when at the same time we have weaponized the Treasury market? And it is the good graces of our foreign creditors who accumulated our treasuries that have allowed us to live this way. And now much of the world is saying, well, look what they just did to Russia. They took 5 trillion, they or billion, they took 5 billion of their treasuries. They defaulted on it. They stole it. And they are using the proceeds to give to the Ukraine, a country they're in a war against. Why would we ever hold their treasuries when they're inflating away their currency to the tune of $100,000 a second, 24/7, when they weaponize the Treasury market against a country? And at the same time, much of the world looks at the things that we do as every bit as egregious or more so than what Russia has done. And so the willingness of our creditors to continue to finance our debt is coming to an end. So not only do you have a problem of a mountain of unfunded liabilities that no one seems to talk about, it's just a $35 trillion debt. Medicare Part B is 99 trillion in the hole. Part D, 22 trillion. Social Security, 77 trillion. Seconds ago is 31,688 years ago. Who's going to pay for this stuff? So inflation is the path that all politicians have chosen over austerity. All of them have chosen that. So yes, I do see, and even with the lying metrics, the bottom line is if no one wants to hold dollars or treasuries anymore, we haven't even begun to see what inflation looks like. But with all else being equal and everything being balanced, no one's talking about all of these liabilities that have to be paid for in an environment where our treasury sales are by the traditional countries that owned our treasuries are falling by the wayside. We're supposed to believe that the United Kingdom and Ireland and the Cayman Islands really are going to hold our treasuries and buy that many. The United Kingdom is a broke country buying the debt of an even more broke country, us. Jim Willie, someone who I respect a lot, says that the Fed's paying them under the table to buy our treasuries to keep the system going. Maybe true, maybe not, don't know. But any way you look at it, every politician and every system since the Roman times have chosen inflation over austerity. Inflation will come roaring back, and it's higher than we are led to believe. If you go just simply to johnwilliamsshadowstats.com, he'll tell you, just based upon the way they used to calculate inflation, that it's about 11% right now, not the 3% we're being told it is. It's a lie. I wish it was only 3%. But yeah, I do think inflation is a persistent problem and will get much worse, and it's not going anywhere.
Silver, despite being one of the most critical and undervalued assets in the world, is being heavily suppressed by 8 Western banks, with powerful forces like the military-industrial complex behind it. Andy Schectman uncovers the shocking reality of how China and India are outmaneuvering the West. quietly accumulating massive amounts of silver at double the price while the official market keeps prices artificially low. This isn't just market manipulation, it's a strategic play that could have devastating consequences. As silver remains vastly underpriced, the potential for it to slingshot past gold when the manipulation finally breaks is enormous.
A different time, there was patriotism abound, but everyone had it in their possession. Gold was money. Now it's not. The allocation of gold in the United States is 1/2 of 1% from Joe and Jane Sixpack to the Harvard Endowment Fund. The consequences globally would be severe if our creditors and the rest of the world feared Venezuelan style nationalization of assets and eminent domain the way that Venezuela did things. No one would trust us again. We're already low on the trust right now. So instead, you have two ETFs, SLV and GLD. SLV is the largest stockpile of silver in the world, and it's administered by JP Morgan and BlackRock. JP Morgan, who paid the largest fine the Justice Department ever laid out for manipulating the metals market, is still allowed to be the custodian of the world's largest silver trust. And JP Morgan and HSBC Bank are involved in custodianship of GLD, the fourth or fifth largest stockpile of gold in the world. So they can come in on a Friday night, close those two accounts, put everyone's money in the money market, be sitting on the largest stockpile of silver and the fourth or fifth largest of gold, held by the bullion banks that suppress the market, and say, what? Well, we didn't do anything. We didn't activate eminent domain. We just closed these two accounts. And this is our right. You can still buy physical metal. I mean, there's a lot more to silver than meets the eye as to why it's not going higher. But I will tell you, on top of, and people should go back and look at those charts, because you have 8 banks in the West holding down the price of silver to the largest concentrated short position ever in any commodity ever traded. This is not normal. I believe has a lot to do with the military industrial complex. We've talked a lot about India importing over 700 million ounces of silver over the last 3 years, and much more than that probably, which is 10 times more than there are bars available for delivery on the COMEX. And we've talked about 3 billion ounces of silver traded per day on the LBMA. That's 3.5 times annual global mine supply, with only 300 million ounces available to be delivered. They're distorting the price through paper deliveries. I think I probably last week talked to you about the validation I've had from 2 mining executives who told me China's flying all around the world buying silver from Latin American mines in unrefined form, doré, bar, and concentrate, as much as they can buy, doubling the price that the West will pay for it, and shipping it home and refining it there. It's not coming off of an exchange. No one noticed it. This comes from the second largest producer of silver in the world, China. They have now, as of just recently, become a net importer instead of a net exporter, because they produce so many and mine so many byproduct metals. They stumble across silver. The majority of silver that comes to market is a byproduct of mining other metals. Only 20% of the silver that came to market, 25% last year, was from companies that specifically mine silver. And that's because it's found in nature in a form called epithermal, near the surface. Epidermis, your skin. Epithermal, very near the surface. Big deposits were found a long time ago. So we've talked about all that. But now to find that silver, or China's becoming a net importer instead of a net exporter, which they were a huge exporter, is massive. And I think that's something people need to understand, is that the Chinese and the Indians are beating us at the game by using the suppression of the paper price by the West to drain the shelves. And they're going as far as buying unrefined silver all around Latin and South America, paying double what the West will pay so they can refine it at home, not pulling it off of an exchange. Therefore, it's not reflected in the higher price. So I think silver is still the most undervalued asset in the world, 100%. But it's not gold, and gold is the only other tier 1 asset that the central banks are buying. There's something big in store for gold. But there's a 90% correlation throughout all of history and movement between gold and silver. Silver will come along for the ride, and it will slingshot and outperform gold percentage-wise when it finally is allowed to reach its fair price. And if you take gold right now at its all-time high, or pretty damn close to it, of 25.15, and we divide that by 7, which is what it's coming out of the ground at, that's $360 an ounce. If you divide it by 42, which would be the average price that man has set it at, even independent of its geologic ratio being much lower than that. Right now, which is the 150-year average, 42, you get $60 an ounce. Silver has been distorted in its value, and the only way to suppress or manipulate a market over an extended period of time is to push it in the direction it's going. And no one ever wanted to stand for delivery on these exchanges, but that's changing. See, these countries are now motivated, coordinated, sophisticated, wealthy, and cunning, and they are using our own suppression of the markets to drain them and to use our leverage against us. They don't have to fire missiles at us to win. They just have to take all the strategic commodities at subsidized prices, because these exchanges have a delivery mechanism built into them that no one ever did forever until now. And they're coming from sovereign wealth funds and sovereign governments who are saying, yeah, we'll stand for delivery. Thank you. So these exchanges are being bled dry, and they're using the Western price to their advantage. The only reason they're not bitching is because they're accumulating. Once they've accumulated enough, and the COMEX or the LBMA is exposed as a Ponzi scheme, just as Bernie Madoff was running a good business until they discovered he wasn't. And when people asked for delivery, give me my money back, it all blew up. Well, that's how this will blow up. And these countries were never sophisticated, motivated, or coordinated enough, or wealthy enough. They are now, and this is how we're going to lose. And this is what they've been doing. So for those people holding on to silver and wondering why it's so counterintuitive and gold keeps going higher, it's because there's a vested interest. And I believe it lies squarely in the military industrial complex's role of creating high-tech weapons that need silver. That's why they've held it down. That's why 8 banks from the West are stepping on silver. It's as dumb as a mud wall. When the whole rest of the world is accumulating it, it will end poorly. And that's why I think we're getting close to the ending of the suppression in silver. It's just a game that will put you out of business if you're naked short and you're not able to deliver when it's called upon. If the exchanges go force majeure and stop allowing delivery, well, that's the same thing as a default. And then the whole thing blows up. So, yeah, I think we're closer than we've ever been. Gold will be the backbone of a new system. Silver is the most undervalued asset in the world and should be part of everyone's portfolio.